Have you ever felt like you're playing some kind of game, but you don't actually know all the rules? Well, today we're going to uncover those invisible rules. We're diving into the really subtle ways power works in our society, often hiding in plain sight. Let's get right into it. So, let's just start with a huge question. Why is it that we, all of us, tend to follow rules or just accept the way things are, even when it doesn't really seem to be working in our own best interest? It's a really fascinating puzzle, right? And it's the main question we're going to tackle in this explainer. When we think about control, our brains usually jump straight to the obvious stuff, force. We think of jail, the police, the army, but there's this other kind of control. It's much quieter, much more subtle, and it works through ideas. It's woven into our culture, our media, our schools, and as we're about to see, it's often way, way more powerful. And the person who really gave us the key to unlock all of this was an Italian thinker named Antonio Gramsci. He came up with this concept called hegemony, and trust me, it's a big idea that does an amazing job of explaining how this whole control by ideas thing actually works. So, what on earth is hegemony? Okay, think of it like this. It's a special kind of power, where the dominant group doesn't just rule by telling people what to do. Instead, they rule by winning our consent. And they do that by making their own values and their beliefs feel totally normal. Like they're not just one opinion, but universal common sense. The main tool for this is what Gramsci called ideological dominance. Sounds a little academic, I know, but it's really about the power to shape the stories we tell ourselves, through movies, the news, you name it. It's the power to make the way things are right now feel, not just temporary, but totally natural and inevitable. And that brings us back to that really important word, consent. Now, this isn't the kind of consent where you actively say, yes, I agree with this. No, it's more about a passive acceptance. It's a much quieter thing, where we just sort of go along with the status quo because it's presented to us as the only way. And that makes it a much more effective, much stickier form of control than just using force. Okay, that's a lot of theory. But where can we actually see this stuff happening in the real world? Well, let's go to a place that every single one of us has been, the classroom. Yeah, the education system is a perfect example of where hegemony gets to work. Because here's the deal. Schools don't just teach us reading, writing, and arithmetic. Whether they mean to or not, they're also teaching us a whole set of beliefs and values. They're teaching a very specific way of looking at the world, one that often just happens to reinforce the way things already are. People sometimes call this the hidden curriculum. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Think about it. We're taught that competition is good, that your success is all on you. It's an individual race. That obedience to authority is super important. And maybe the biggest one, that our society is a meritocracy, where the best and the brightest just naturally float to the top. Now, these aren't objective facts, right? These are values. And the outcome of this hidden curriculum is a really powerful belief, that if you fail, it's a personal failure. It's not because the system might be unfair. This whole idea of meritocracy can make us think that if someone doesn't succeed, well, it's just their own fault. And that way of thinking can completely mask the real structural barriers that might be holding people back. And this is absolutely crucial to Gramsci's theory, this control is never total. It's not a done deal. Hegemony is actually a constant struggle. It's not a permanent state of being. That common sense can always be challenged. You see, for every hegemony, there is always the potential for counter-hegemony. It's literally the opposite. It's not passive acceptance, it's active, critical resistance to those dominant ideas. It's all about trying to create a new, alternative common sense that pushes back against the status quo. And we can see this resistance right back in the classroom. For example, researchers like Paul Willis famously studied working-class boys who were actively rejecting the official values of their school. And thinkers like Henry Giroux argue that schools aren't just places for control, they can also be sites of struggle and real change. This is where Gramsci's idea of organic intellectuals comes in. These are thinkers and leaders who come up from within communities to challenge things and raise awareness from the ground up. Okay, so why have we spent all this time unpacking a pretty complex theory from an Italian thinker from a century ago? Because honestly, understanding hegemony isn't just some dusty academic exercise. It gives us a brand new lens for seeing the world around us. If you take one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this. The most effective kind of power isn't the one you can see. It's not force. It's the power that you don't even notice, the one that quietly shapes your basic assumptions about what is normal, what is possible, and what is true. And you can actually start spotting it yourself using this super simple two-step tool. First, just identify a belief that pretty much everyone accepts as common sense. And then ask yourself a simple but really powerful question. Who really benefits the most when everyone believes this is true? That question, that's the beginning of everything. It's the first step towards counter-hegemony. It's how we start to move from just passively accepting things to being actively aware. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What common sense idea are you going to choose to question today?